Jeremiah Johnson is one of those movies that feels bigger the more you sit with it. At first, it looks like a simple western about a man trying to live alone 0:099 seconds in the mountains, but there is much more beneath the surface. The film placed Robert Redford in a cold, brutal world 0:1616 seconds and turned his story into a survival tale that, music, still feels powerful today. Released in 1972, Jeremiah's 0:2424 seconds Johnson became more than just another western. It stood out for its realism, 0:2929 seconds quiet emotion, and the mystery that still surrounds parts of its making. 0:3333 seconds people still wonder what changed, what was left, music, out, and why the film feels so different from others of its time. Join us as we take a look at Jeremiah Johnson from the very start, 0:4444 seconds, and uncover things you may not know, the real man behind Jeremiah Johnson. Before Jeremiah Johnson became a 1972 music 0:5353 seconds film, the story was already wrapped in legend. The movie was based in part on two different books about a mountain man. 1:001 minute linked to the real figure, music, John Jeremiah Garrison Johnston. In many retellings, he became known as Liberating Johnson, which is the kind of 1:091 minute, 9 seconds name that instantly tells you this was not a gentle frontier tale. Music, of course, a lot of people from the Old West were turned into larger-than-life 1:161 minute, 16 seconds legends. Music, and their stories were often mixed with rumor, fear, and exaggeration. Still, even with that in mind, music, this man's reputation 1:251 minute, 25 seconds stood out. The version most people remember from the film is much cleaner and more controlled than the darker stories tied to the real name. That is 1:331 minute, 33 seconds, part of what makes Jeremiah Johnson so interesting to talk about. It is not just a western about a man in the mountains. It is a movie built from 1:411 minute, 41 seconds pieces of a much rougher legend. The real figure behind it was said to be violent, wild, and driven by grief in ways the film only partly touched. 1:511 minute, 51 seconds, music. So, right from the start, there is a gap between the man on screen and the man people talked about in history and frontier lore. That gap matters. 1:591 minute, 59 seconds, because it helps, music, explain why the movie feels both real and carefully shaped at the same time. And once you know the story began with a figure 2:082 minutes, 8 seconds called Liberating Johnson, music, you already know there is a lot more under the surface than the title Jeremiah Johnson first suggests. The man before 2:172 minutes, 17 seconds, the legend. The man tied to the legend, music, was said to have been born John Jeremiah Garrison on July 1, 1824. 2:242 minutes, 24 seconds, music, 2:252 minutes, 25 seconds, in New Jersey. Though old record-keeping was far from perfect, so even the details of his early life are a little 2:322 minutes, 32 seconds shaky. At some point, he served aboard a fighting ship during the Mexican War. Then came the turning point that changed his path. According to the story, he struck a superior officer, 2:432 minutes, 43 seconds, which was the kind of move that could destroy a man's future in the military. 2:472 minutes, 47 seconds. Instead of staying and facing punishment, he deserted. After that, he changed, music, his name. First, he became Johnston, and then somewhere along 2:562 minutes, 56 seconds the last letter fell away and he became Johnson. The film gave people the name Jeremiah Johnson. And yes, that 3:053 minutes, 5 seconds has a stronger ring to it. Music, but the real man does not seem to have used that exact name. After leaving military 3:123 minutes, 12 seconds life behind, he headed west, where, music, he hoped to survive as a trapper and hunter. He was not ready for that life yet, music, so he needed someone 3:203 minutes, 20 seconds to teach him. That was where old John Hatcher entered the story. Hatcher was a well-known mountain man who took Johnson under his wing, music, and brought him 3:293 minutes, 29 seconds to a cabin near the Little Snake River in northern Colorado. There, Johnson, music, learned the skills he would need to survive. How to hunt, how to shoot a 3:383 minutes, 38 seconds Hawken rifle, how to start a fire, how to set traps, and how to live off the land. He also learned how to trade first 3:463 minutes, 46 seconds for supplies, and how to avoid dangers in the wild. In other words, before the legend took shape, there was a learning 3:533 minutes, 53 seconds period, and, music, Johnson seemed to pick it up fast. But the part that truly changed everything had not happened yet. 4:004 minutes, the tragedy that changed everything. 4:034 minutes, 3 seconds after Hatcher retired and left him the cabin, Johnson's life was said to take another major turn. He had gotten to know members of the Flathead tribe in 4:124 minutes, 12 seconds. One chief offered his daughter in exchange for furs. Johnson later returned and the two were married. Back at the cabin, they began building a life. 4:204 minutes, 20 seconds together. He prepared food and supplies for her because he planned to leave during the winter for trapping. And before he went, he taught her how to use 4:284 minutes, 28 seconds his rifle. In return, she taught him to speak Salish. She also became pregnant, though he did not know that at the time. 4:364 minutes, 36 seconds when Johnson returned in the spring, 4:374 minutes, 37 seconds, music, he found the cabin open and his wife dead. Her remains had been left exposed through the winter. He also discovered a small skull beneath her rib. 4:464 minutes, 46 seconds cage, which made him, music, realize she had been carrying their unborn child when she was killed. According to the legend, this was the moment that broke 4:544 minutes, 54 seconds him and set off one of the most brutal revenge stories in Old West lore. 4:594 minutes, 59 seconds, music, people began finding the bodies of Crow warriors. The bodies had been scalped, music, and their livers had been cut out. That is how the name 5:075 minutes, 7 seconds liver-eating Johnson took hold. Stories grew even darker from there. He was said to have hunted Crow men for years, 5:145 minutes, 14 seconds, possibly killing hundreds, though those numbers belong more to legend than clear, music, proof. One story claims the Crow sent their strongest men after him in 5:225 minutes, 22 seconds. None came back. Another says he was captured by Blackfoot, music, warriors, 5:275 minutes, 27 seconds, escaped after breaking free from leather straps, scalped a guard, cut off the man's leg, and later ate it to stay alive during a winter journey back to 5:355 minutes, 35 seconds safety. Whether every detail was true or not, the point is clear. The legend was built on grief, revenge, fear, and 5:435 minutes, 43 seconds shocking violence. And that is exactly the kind of material a film would never present in, music, full. When the legend 5:505 minutes, 50 seconds became a movie years later, Hollywood found its way to that story. In April 1968, producer Sidney Beckerman got the 5:585 minutes, 58 seconds film rights to Crowler, the saga of liver-eating Johnson. By May 1970, Warner Brothers had the rights and hired John 6:076 minutes, 7 seconds Milius to write a screen version. The movie was shaped from both Crowkiller and Vardis Fisher's novel Mountain Man. 6:146 minutes, 14 seconds. Milius first wrote what would become Jeremiah Johnson for a small fee, but he kept being brought back to work on it again and again, and in the end he made 6:226 minutes, 22 seconds much more from the project because the studio kept needing him. He later said Edward Anhalt and David Rayfield also worked on the screenplay, but that he 6:316 minutes, 31 seconds kept returning because no one else could quite handle the dialogue the way he could. He, music, said his feel for the language came from writers like Carl. 6:396 minutes, 39 seconds Sandberg, and he was also influenced by True Grit. Even at this stage, the movie was not trying to tell the real Johnson story in a straight way. It was music, 6:486 minutes, 48 seconds, already becoming a crafted version of that legend. That matters because the film was being built as something more thoughtful and, music, more controlled than the rough story that inspired it. 6:596 minutes, 59 seconds. In many ways, it offered the music image of a tired man escaping society. 7:037 minutes, 3 seconds, finding peace in nature, losing that peace, and then being pulled back into music, violence. For audiences in that era, especially during the Vietnam War, 7:127 minutes, 12 seconds years, that kind of story had a strong pull. It looked like a Western, but it also worked as a survival story and a 7:197 minutes, 19 seconds quiet character study. And once the writing was taking shape, the next big question became, who would actually play this mountain man on screen? Before 7:287 minutes, 28 seconds, Robert Redford got the role. Robert Redford is the face most people connect with Jeremiah Johnson now, but he, music, was not the first name linked to 7:367 minutes, 36 seconds the role. The part was first meant for Lee Marvin, music, and then Clint Eastwood became a serious possibility with Sam Peckinpah set to direct. That 7:467 minutes, 46 seconds version never happened. Peckinpah and Eastwood did not get along. So Peckinpah left, music, and Eastwood moved on and chose to make Dirty Harry instead. 7:567 minutes, 56 seconds. Another account says Eastwood looked at the role and felt the character was too quiet and too inward for him. He wanted 8:038 minutes, 3 seconds more action, more music, movement, and more dialogue. While this mountain man was meant to carry a lot of his story in silence, however you put it, music, 8:128 minutes, 12 seconds. Eastwood passed, and that changed everything. Warner Brothers then lined the project up for Redford. 8:198 minutes, 19 seconds, music, 8:198 minutes, 19 seconds. He and Sidney Pollack had already worked together before, and Pollack was looking for another film to do with him after this property is condemned. Music, 8:278 minutes, 27 seconds. Redford was asked if he wanted to disappear into a role where people would barely recognize him, and he agreed. He committed himself, music, to becoming 8:358 minutes, 35 seconds. The character physically by growing out his beard and changing his appearance so he would blend into music, this hard frontier world. Sidney Pollack directed 8:458 minutes, 45 seconds. The film, and Redford starred as Jeremiah Johnson with Will Geer playing Bearclaw Chris Lapp. Music, the casting of Jeremiah's wife Swan also took time. 8:568 minutes, 56 seconds. Della Bolton ended up getting the part after standing out during auditions and interviews, even after, music, being seen for another role first. So by the time 9:059 minutes, 5 seconds cameras rolled, the film had already gone through major changes. Music, 9:099 minutes, 9 seconds. Different stars, different creative paths, and a legend that had been softened and reshaped were all part of its journey. Then the movie itself took 9:179 minutes, 17 seconds. That rough material, music, and turned it into something very different. The story the film chose to tell. In the 9:249 minutes, 24 seconds finished film, Jeremiah Johnson is a music Mexican war veteran who heads into the Rocky Mountains and decides to 9:319 minutes, 31 seconds live as a trapper. His first winter is hard and he, music, has to learn how to